Carson Palmer gets his wish, traded to the Raiders, a deadline deal with all the details on one we didn't see coming.
We'll talk about making the change from Donovan McNabb to Christian Ponder and what that means for the Vikings.
And what's in a handshake? Well, we're going to tell you, and it's coming up next on NFL Live, and it starts right now.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome into another edition of NFL Live. As always, glad you are here with us. Trey Wingo here with Chris Mortensen and the coach, Eric Mangini and Herm Edwards. Trade deadline, 4 o'clock Eastern, and one deal that beat the buzzer has jaws dropping all over the NFL landscape. The Bengals have managed to trade Carson Palmer for the entire state of California. Palmer goes to the Raiders in exchange for 2 first-round picks, one in 2012 and a conditional first-round pick in 2013 if Oakland wins a playoff game this year. If not, it becomes a second-round pick in 2013. But this is a remarkable change in stance from Mike Brown, who had said all along he's not trading Carson Palmer. And by dealing Carson, the Bengals say goodbye to a player who has really been the face of their franchise. He's the leader in completion percentage, passing touchdowns, and passer rating, and of course, helped the team win a couple of division titles under his tenure. All right, for more on this deal and how it got done, as we said, ESPN senior NFL insider Chris Mortensen is here. Look, obviously, the broken collarbone to Jason Campbell sped this thing up. But considering how stubborn Mike Brown was on not trading Carson Palmer, how did this happen?
Well, you know, it's interesting because I spoke with Ken O'Brien, the former Jets quarterback who actually has been working with Palmer over the past month on the field. And when I spoke to Ken O'Brien this afternoon, he actually said that Carson's excitement about playing again actually started to wane this past week because he actually believed nothing was going to happen. So clearly the Jason Campbell injury did bring urgency to it. And from speaking to the Bengals side of it, they said the only way Mike Brown was going to do anything is if he got, you know, a bounty, a huge bounty for Carson Palmer. And he got that huge bounty. And certainly the comfort level of seeing Andy Dalton, believing he's their future quarterback, understanding that there's a resolve on Carson's part to get a fresh start. We've never heard from Carson on this, by the way. Allowed this thing to move forward quickly, and Hugh Jackson, obviously, with the history with Carson Palmer at the Bengals previously, and they feel they are ready to strike here in the AFC West. So they felt the urgency, and obviously they gave up a bounty.
Well, it's interesting, too, because technically there is no general manager right now with the Raiders organization. So how did this come together? No, but there's been one guy in charge, Al Davis, and obviously he passed away over a week ago. So who's in charge of making those decisions right now?
Well, we don't have a clear answer on that, but I've been told that Hugh Jackson was going to be handling the personnel. And so you would have to say the coach, Hugh Jackson's doing it, but he's got to get it signed off by Mark Davis, Al Davis's son, and Amy Trask, the CEO, because Carson Palmer, as you know, had years left on his contract through 2014, certainly had to restructure because he's due something like $6.9 million on the balance of this year.
Right.
And they only have $6 million under the cap. So there are people involved. From the personnel standpoint, I think Hugh Jackson was the driving force behind it.
Well, Hugh Jackson has been, look, they've been feeding off his energy, and everything's been going well for them this year, and obviously their first non-losing season since their Super Bowl season last year. But as coaches, guys, the idea of getting Carson Palmer, who will be 32 in December. Eric, you ran some numbers, and you like this idea.
Well, I like it in the sense that his numbers compare favorably to a lot of the elite quarterbacks in the league, and it's one of those situations where the Raiders' offense is pretty good, and it's well run, and they've got a chance. So they're figuring if we go get a quarterback, and it's such a quarterback-driven league, now we give ourselves a better chance as we move in the latter half of the season.
But what Carson Palmer are they getting? Are they getting the Carson Palmer Herm from 05 and 09? Are they getting the one that, listen, had statistically a pretty good year last year, but couldn't make it work with both T.O. and Chad Ochocinco, and I think they lost 10 straight games?
Well, the key to this is Hugh Jackson. Hugh Jackson was at Cincinnati. If we recall, he was actually the wide receiver coach when Carson Palmer was in Cincinnati. And with that being said, when you look at the Oakland Raiders right now, offensively, they are a run-driven football team. They like to run the football. They're second in the National Football League running the football. By the way, Jason Campbell has thrown 6 touchdown passes. So you bring in Carson Palmer for what? To throw the ball down the football field. Carson Palmer will feel very comfortable in this offense for a number of reasons. It's a vertical passing offense. He can throw the ball. He's not the guy that needs to run the offense. The offense is run by the offensive line and the run game. So Carson Palmer is a good fit, a veteran quarterback, plays a lot of football in his career. He's going to be protected. He's only given up 7 sacks. So he's going to feel pretty comfortable about going to a team that's 4-2, has a chance to win the division. And by the way, that Oakland Raider team didn't lose any games last year in this division, so they're sitting pretty good right now.
Who are you pointing at, Coach?
I'm just talking about you.
By the way, before we get into this discussion, the trade is now official. It's officially done. Carson Palmer is a Raider.
Here's the thing about it is Carson, from what I understand, I think this is pretty good information, is excited because he himself is quite aware of what Herm was just talking about, which is that they are a running football team, the play action and throwing the ball down the field. He likes what they have with that offensive line. He knows Hugh Jackson. He's excited that Darren McFadden's in place. He's excited about the fact they have a tight end and Kevin Boss that he feels is a good target. So he likes the situation he's going to. And it doesn't hurt that his wife, Shaylin, is from that Bay Area. And so I think that even though there was a report that maybe he wanted West Coast teams only, I was later told no, he would be more wide open. He just wanted a fresh start from Cincinnati. And as I said, we have yet to hear from him. He's actually taken the high road on this in terms of what he has said publicly, which has been nothing.
Yeah, he's been mum all the way around. He may not have wanted only West Coast, but he got it. So from that perspective, it's a home run. Here's the thing, how quickly, because you talked about the weapons. Darius Hayward-Bay is emerging. Denarius Moore, that guy goes right down the field. He's terrific. How quickly can he get up to speed in this offense?
Well, he's got to get up to speed right now and play this week. They went and got him. They've got some time here, and they've got to make it work. However they do it, however they have to limit the offense to get him to play, to get him to start, and to get him to produce. And he's a veteran guy who has been around so much football that he'll be able to associate what Oakland's doing with what he's done in the past, and Hugh will be able to talk to him in a language that he understands.
So you don't think Kyle Bowler starts this game and then they wait for the bye? I don't know.
I don't know either. I know this. Kerry Collins played what in a week?
18 days.
Indianapolis Colts.
He got under center.
Well, now, I don't know if he
got
plays this week or not, but I know one thing. When you think about where they're at right now, the Oakland Raiders, they have 3 division games coming up. Kansas City, Denver, and then San Diego. So this is a good get for the Raiders. They've got a veteran quarterback. They feel very comfortable with this guy. He has some history with the head coach, which makes it kind of nice. So this will happen. He'll start playing. Remember, he only has to play. If he doesn't play this week, he's only have to play 9 football games.
Well, they hope more
hopefully
than that.
a lot more.
Regular season. And
Actually, they hope more than that, and so do the Bengals hope more
Because
than
that works for both of them if they go into the playoffs and win that playoff game. And we'll talk about how this affects the AFC West a little bit later on this edition of NFL Live. But what to make of Carson Palmer and what he's done in his career, again, who will turn 32 in December. Oh, look how young he looks. First overall by the Bengals out of USC in 2003, then did not play for an entire year as he sat behind John Kitna. Then in 05, that was his breakout year, led the Bengals to the playoffs for the first time since 90, but then on this play, torn ACL on the first play of their playoff game against the Steelers. By the way, he completed the longest playoff pass on that play as well. He started every game in 06-07, averaging better than 4,000 yards per season. But the Bengals were 2 games under 500. Then in 2008, there was the torn elbow ligament, shortened the season to just 4 games, and the Bengals struggled to a 1-11-1 start, missing the playoffs. As we said, bounced back in 09. They swept the division that year, back in the playoffs before a 4-12 campaign last season, and then 2011, been marred by this sort of stubborn fight he had with Mike Brown, but now he's gone to the Raiders, where the Raiders are trying to make their first playoff run since 2002. And by dealing their 2012 first-round pick to the Bengals for Carson Palmer, the Raiders are now in a position to make their first pick of the 2012 draft in the 5th round. Now, they look likely going to have a compensatory pick for Nnamdi Asomugha in there. But if that doesn't happen, and for some reason things don't go our way, they're in position to become the first team with no picks in the first 4 rounds of the draft since 1989. That year, the Raiders made no picks in the first round.
Precedent.
In the first 5 rounds. So that's what they're giving up for this. If this in mind, Eric, did they give up too much?
Well, it's like anything else. You have to pay whatever price someone's going to set. And Cincinnati was set in stone in terms of not trading Carson Palmer, so they had to do whatever they needed to do to get him out there once they determined that he was their guy. So the price is what it is. It's just whether or not you're willing to pay it.
Is the price worth the prize? Yeah. That's the question he's asking.
We can tell you once we see the results.
Exactly. And you know what this reminds me of?
So I gave you a bad question. There's no way to answer it.
No.
Bad.
Well, no. It's a fair question.
It's good for the Bengals.
It's one of those things where they were so determined not to trade him that you had to go over the top to get him out of there.
Yeah. And more, now this wasn't a trade, I don't think. Now you know more about this than I would. Eric wasn't in the league then, because we're dating ourselves. We're a little bit older than
That's
Eric.
right.
You remember when the Oakland Raiders got a guy by the name of Jim Plunkett?
That's exactly what
yeah.
they're hoping
Francisco
for.
49ers?
Yes.
Are they kind of hoping for that?
There's no question there's some history there. And let's face it, I mean, we look at Carson Palmer and say, which Carson Palmer you're getting. Everybody thinks he was still suffering from the knee injury. No, it was the elbow injury. Even though they won the division in 2009, once Chris Henry had his tragic ending there, Carson struggled because they didn't have anybody to stretch the field and let things breathe. And there are some people who still thought he should have had Tommy John surgery, but he feels really good about his health. He was banged up last year a little bit with his hip and what have you. So now the Raiders had backup plans, but by the way, they talked about Aaron Curry being in this deal because Ray Maluga was banged up at linebacker, but they think he'll be back pretty soon. Vince Young would have been a backup choice if they had not been able to pull off this trade, but I think they feel good. I think the Jim Plunkett analogy is a good one.
Well, we'll find out again at the end of the season whether or not that Plunkett analogy comes to fruition. Much more on what this trade means for the Cincinnati Bengals, by the way, who are doing really good things right now as well, a little bit later on in the show. Other quarterback news for you, and it's official. Vikings coach Leslie Frazier has let the team know there's going to be a change. Rookie Christian Ponder will start this Sunday against the Green Bay Packers. Frazier has also informed Donovan McNabb of that move. Ponder to become the third quarterback drafted in the first round to start this season. Of course, Cam Newton started that way, and Blaine Gabbert came in a little earlier. Much more on this as well on NFL Live. Listen, Monday Night Football, somebody had to win. But should the Jets feel good about the way they won? And what is the protocol for a handshake? If anybody knows it, it's Eric Mangini. Herm and Eric will break it down as we continue on NFL Live. All about Carson Palmer on this day. Now, a member of the Raiders. I don't think any of us really saw this one coming when the deadline was looming not too long ago.
No.
Washington's a great rivalry. I think it all started with George Allen and Tom Landry, and obviously it's just built from there.
But to be able to go back and look at the past and all the things that have happened and what that game means, that just, just fueled everything.
Going deep, and the pass is caught for a touchdown. Going deep for Moss again. He makes the catch. Unbelievable. For Jerry Jones and for Bill Parcells, that's about as bitter as it gets.
We had some battles in my past 6 years of playing them, and I know the 30-plus years, before that.
Play action fakes the doorstep. Set up a screen, batted in the air, picked off by Darryl Grant. Touchdown, Washington Redskins! I don't believe it!
The championship is going to go to Jimmy Johnson.
Unbelievable! Yeah!
One team at the top, time after time, might leave fans wanting something new. But winning never gets old for the winning team.
I mean, it is so difficult to do that in my heart, I know what we've accomplished ranks up there as high as any other professional team.
If you can dream it, you can do it. And some people do more than they dream.
Well, the Monday night game between the Dolphins and Jets was interesting. Rex Ryan and company trying to avoid a fourth straight loss. There was a great battle between Brandon Marshall and Darrelle Revis here, and wasn't that pass interference?
No.
Come on, Coach.
That was what you call pick your pocket, run. No one's tackling this guy. Look at the lineman fall down. He's doing cartwheels.
I love Darrell, but he was pretty physical down the field.
Coach,
Was it pass interference, yes or no, Eric Mangini?
It looked like it.
Okay, either way, it's a 100-yard interception return, one of two for him on the night. As for the Jets' offense, it was stagnant. That's the best way to describe it. They go 3 and out on each of their first 4 possessions. Put that another way, they had 6 3 and outs in this game. The Patriots have 8 3 and outs for the entire season. And then Sanchez, luckily, was falling down on second and third team, but stays alive, and after 5.2 seconds, he gets Dustin Keller. There was no pass rush, Eric, for the Dolphins all night.
Well, one of the things that Sanchez does really well is he moves in the pocket.
And then, look, they set it up where he can run out of the pocket here.
Which I think is a really good thing to do. The more times that they can let him use his feet to help him make plays, I think that's a good thing.
This was the only good drive they had in the first half, but it was a huge one. At one point, the Jets were leading 7-6 and had not gotten a first down yet. And then in the second half, here's the killer. Again, all kinds of time, and then Santonio Holmes gets the reception from him and got good downfield blocking.
Yeah, and Cameron Wade, they were in the zone dog. He had him coming across the field, but kind of
hard to stay with him.
Yeah, listen, I wonder if Santonio thanked all the offensive linemen for blocking on that play after the comments he had last week. You guys both know this. You never apologize for a win in this league because an ugly W still counts the same as a beautiful W. It's one in the right column. But if you're the Jets, be honest, what are you looking at now after that win?
Well, you're concerned with your rhythm in your offense. And when you look at this football team, the first thing you realize is this. You know, high-powered offenses in this football league, they have a way of making first downs. When you think about Drew Brees, you think about New England, they're about at 125 first downs thus far. When you think of the Jets, they're about at 90. So when you don't make first downs, you can't get into the rhythm. Also, they're not very good on third down, about 33% offensively, so you can never get into rhythm with your offense, and that's kind of what happened early in this football game.
The one thing that's good, though, is with the win, however ugly it was, it puts to bed a little bit of the infighting that's been there, and I'm sure caused some problems and distractions, so you're not focusing on the next opponent. So at least getting that out of the way, hopefully now the focus goes back on what it should be, which is San Diego this week, and you're over that trouble.
Winning is the ultimate deodorant, as we've said a million times, but they've got to play better if they want to have any chance against the Chargers.
I got a funny feeling there's another receiver going to have something to say this week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You want to tell us who it is?
Maybe that Plaxico Burress guy.
All right, we'll see.
He's not involved in this offense. That's not
well,
good.
that's been a season-long issue
That's not
for
good.
the New York Jets. So listen, it was an ugly win for the Jets, but at least it was a win. As for the Dolphins, it's just ugly. Let's go back to Chris Mortensen. Mort, they're 0-5 now. It's their worst start since 2007. How hot is that seat right now for Tony Sperano?
Well, it's hot as it is defined by the media, certainly, and certainly by the fans. You know, with a short week, you know, there was speculation that, hey, maybe he would have gotten fired during the bye week. When they didn't fire him during the bye week, it just tells you they want to stay the course, so to speak. I think Jeff Ireland, the general manager, does not want to show panic at this moment with Stephen Ross, the owner. Certainly Stephen Ross, looking at the big picture, is going to be looking to hire, I think, a big-name franchise-type coach, perhaps even shake up the entire football operation, depending on how the team finishes. But right now, there's no indication that Tony Sperano is getting fired.
And Mort, you got some late news about another trade deadline?
Real quick, yeah, Ronnie Brown is going from the Philadelphia Eagles to Detroit, where Scott Linehan was his offensive coordinator in Miami when Nick Saban drafted Ronnie Brown for the Dolphins. He is now a Lion to take the void here, I think, with Javid Best suffering from these concussion problems.
All right, Mort, as always, we appreciate the information. When we continue, Carson Palmer got his wish. He's on the West Coast. Are the Raiders now the team to beat in the AFC West with number 9 in place? Stay with us.
Complete. He was going to run. Gets the handoff, turns it upfield, big hole. Brent Richardson. Michael James not going to catch that man. Touchdown, Marcus Lattimore.
Don't miss College Football Live all season on ESPN America.
The biggest advice for rookie quarterbacks is to prepare well. You need confidence to play in this league, and I think as a rookie, that's one way to find it.
If you're a starting quarterback, it doesn't matter if you're a number 1 pick or an undrafted free agent. If you're playing in the NFL, there's great pressure and expectations.
Study your butt off and take the game as it comes. Eat the elephant one bite at a time, man. It's a lot.
Get ahead of the game. ESPN SoccerNet. Football news, views and results online and on mobile.
Again, the story in the NFL this day, Carson Palmer officially now a Raider, traded from the Bengals to Oakland for a first-rounder in 2012 and a conditional first-rounder in 2013. If they don't win a playoff game this season, that second pick in 2013 becomes a second-round pick. But either way, Carson is back in California. All right, for more on the Raiders' perspective on this, we welcome in Mark Purdy, columnist for the San Jose Mercury News. Mark, we all knew the Raiders needed a quarterback. Did anybody in the Bay Area see this coming?
Well, Carson Palmer's name has been floating out there, but actually his name surfaced last summer as possibly for the 49ers. So, because at that point, no one knew if Alex Smith was going to be, the real guy for the 49ers, and the Raiders seemed set with Jason Campbell. Once Campbell got hurt, I think, the name kind of resurfaced around here, but this is a pretty decisive act by the Raiders.
Well, I think they're all in. You can say that with potentially trading 2 first-rounders for a guy who's going to turn 32 in December. But the interesting thing here is who's making this call for the Oakland Raiders? Al Davis just passed. There is no general manager in place. Is it Amy Trask, the CEO? Is it Hugh Jackson? Who's involved in making these decisions right now for the Raiders?
Well, that's what we are trying to figure out. In the past, there was never any question. Al Davis made all the decisions, but the Raiders' office has always been, this secretive place, and that still continues. Just an educated guess on my part would be that it's Hugh Jackson. John Madden, I know, has also been involved with giving some advice to people with the Raiders. I'm sure he spoke with Hugh probably about this, but I think this is all Hugh.
Raider Nation has had a lot to be happy about towards the end of last season and this year after 7 or 8 dismal years. What's the reaction you're hearing from people in and around the Bay Area of that Raider Nation, those core people that think they may give up 2 first-round picks for Carson Palmer?
Well, I don't think the Raider Nation and the Raider fans are different than fans of any other NFL team. They don't care what's going to happen in 2013. They are thinking about now, and they think that if Carson Palmer is healthy, and that's the big question because of all the injuries he's had, that they can win now with him, and that's what the fans care about. I don't think the fans care about 2013 or probably 2012. They are all in now, and I think they look at Hugh Jackson, who did work with Carson Palmer in Cincinnati, and figure he must know what he's doing in making this roll of the dice. So right now, I think the reaction is pretty positive, except from the fans who are worried about the 2013 draft, and what are those? Maybe 7 of those people. I don't know.
Well, there's excitement now. There won't become draft day because there won't be any picks for the Raiders.
No,
I
know. There'll be fewer fans that show up on draft day. But other than that, no, it's all about now.
Well, it's certainly a big splash, and I guess the one thing we can say with great definition and certainty is that Jason Campbell's likely to miss more than the 6 weeks he thought he'd be missing with the broken collarbone. We'll see how it all plays out. Mark, as always, we appreciate the time. Thanks very much.
Sure, anytime. Thanks.
All right, let's take this to the discussion that is really beneficial to the Bengals and the Raiders. I mean, if the Raiders win a playoff game this year, the Bengals get give up a second first-round pick, and then the Raiders are obviously doing well. With Carson Palmer there, is it possible for them to win a playoff game this year?
I think it's definitely possible for them to win a playoff game. This offense has been fun to watch all season. It presents a bunch of problems for defenses. They can run the ball, and I played against Carson Palmer the last 2 years. He's a good quarterback. His numbers say that. The way that he's played has said that, and he's going to a system that I think is getting better and better.
But you don't think his skills have been diminished at all?
I didn't watch him as much in the early years. I thought he was still playing at a high level.
All right, Herm, what about the idea of this team maybe now being a team to beat in the AFC West? Look, everybody knows San Diego's loaded for talent, #1 offense, #1 defense last year, but it seems they're always in a very close game, and they always seem to find a way to stumble. Can the Raiders now, with Carson Palmer, if they get him up to speed, be that team to beat in the AFC West?
Well, when you think about the AFC West, last year the Raiders were 6-0 in the AFC West.
Swept.
By the way, swept the division last year, so they've got to feel pretty good about getting Carson Palmer on their roster and helping them at the quarterback position. Here again, this is a team that has swept this division last year. They have 3 division opponents coming up next in the next 3 weeks. They play Kansas City, they play Denver, and San Diego. So if they're going to win this division, we're going to find out in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, they've always been good. Last year in this is we found that they can win the division. It has been outside the division. That's why the win in Houston last week, the win against the Cleveland Browns was so significant, because those are the games that they couldn't win a year ago that they're finding a way to win right now.
They don't want any of this. You feel this? They don't want any of this. They weren't ready for this.
Palmer to throw. He throws down the field. Touchdown!
That was huge all day long.
It's safe to say they didn't want any of Carson Palmer in Cincinnati. They've got Andy Dalton now. What to make of where the Bengals are going with this trade? Well, bottom of the hour again, the big news in the NFL this day. Carson Palmer gets his wish. The Bengals have traded him to the Raiders for a couple of picks, a first-rounder in 2012 and a conditional first-rounder in 2013 if the Raiders win a playoff game. Again, Carson Palmer, who turns 32 in December, had said he was going to retire instead of play for the Bengals. Mike Brown of Cincinnati was insistent they're not going to trade him. And again, here's how it went down. The Raiders get the quarterback they need because of the injury to Jason Campbell, broken collarbone, and the Bengals get back a 2012 first-round draft pick and a conditional first-round pick in 2013. If they don't win a playoff game, the Raiders this year, then that goes to a second-round pick in 2013. Again, ESPN's Chris Mortensen has been all over this. Mort, take us through the process again for those just joining us now. What was the decision-making? How did we get to where we are?
Well, the urgency obviously quickened itself once Jason Campbell was basically lost for the season with the collarbone, even though he says he thinks he can come back and play.
That changes now.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders put him on injured reserve, though we have no official word on that. And, you know, the Raiders and Hugh Jackson, their head coach, has a history, had been an assistant coach with the Bengals from 2004 to 2006. And urgently, clearly, he wanted Carson Palmer to come in and run that. Carson Palmer has been working out with Ken O'Brien, former Jets and a quarterback tutor who now lives in the Los Angeles area. And Carson Palmer is a guy that likes what he sees in the Raiders in terms of the offensive line, the running game, a tight end in Kevin Boss, some guys who can stretch the field. And then it was really a matter of him restructuring his contract and getting Mike Brown enough of a bounty, and whether it's a first and a second round pick with a conditional, it could become a first. We certainly want clarity on that part of it, but that's a bounty. This is a winning deal for Mike Brown. He can now face Bengal Nation and actually not get bashed for something. And they've got their quarterback of the future, as you know, in Andy Dalton.
Yeah, the real chemistry that Dalton has had with A.J. Green has been one of the real surprises so far of the early part of 2011, considering those two rookies really didn't have any OTAs or minicamps to work through. As for Carson Palmer, he's joining a small group. He's just the third non-rookie quarterback to be traded for multiple first-round picks since 1990. He joins Jay Cutler, who from the Broncos to the Bears, and Jeff George, who was traded from the Colts to the Falcons back in 1994. So what to make of all of this in Cincinnati? For the very latest on that, let's welcome in Joe Reedy, the Bengals beat writer for the Cincinnati Enquirer. What are they saying? Joe, considering how stubborn and insistent Mike Brown was on not trading Carson Palmer, how surprised are people in Cincinnati that he's going?
I think there's a good amount of shock here, Trey, but also the fact that Oakland was willing to give up a first-rounder in 2012 and a second-rounder in 2013 that could turn into a first-rounder. I think that's beyond what anybody thought in terms of value that Carson would get in a trade, except for one person who was very adamant in getting that value, and that's Mike Brown.
Well, it's interesting, too, because it was just a couple of years ago he passed on a deal from the Redskins that would have given him 2 number 1s for Chad Ochocinco.
Yeah, that is true. But the thing with that deal is because still 3 years of bonus money was left to be paid, that would have been an $8 to $10 million hit against the Bengals cap for 2008. So in terms of trying to do that, it was difficult. But with Carson's deal right now, yes, it is $50 million over the next 4 years, which I'm sure is being renegotiated right now with the Raiders salary cap room. But it's all base salary. There's no hit to the Bengals whatsoever this year.
All right, so it looks like Mike played this exactly right. He gets some draft picks. As Carson Palmer is on his way out of town, what are people's thoughts on Carson? I mean, he was a first-round pick. He led you guys to a couple of division titles, but obviously made it very clear he didn't want to play there anymore. What is Carson Palmer's perception in Cincinnati?
It kind of depends, Trey. You've got a lot of people who think he quit on this franchise. You've got certain players who think he quit on them. And it's 1-2 of, missed opportunities.
All right, so now what's the feeling in Cincinnati when you have a team that has the second best defense in the NFL, a young quarterback and a young receiver in Dalton and A.J. Green that seem to be hitting it off? Optimism has to be pretty high.
Yeah, and I think especially with the 4-2 record, with what Andy showed in the first 6 games and the fact that he could lead the team and he's got the poise of a third or fourth year veteran, as some players around here will tell you. As soon as Mike Brown knew he had a successor in Andy Dalton and what he's shown, this made the availability of a trade a lot easier. And the fact too that Oakland was willing to give up 2 high draft picks, I think that Mike Brown definitely owes a fruit basket, Christmas card, whatever, to Cleveland's Chris Gokong for the collarbone injury to Jason Campbell.
Okay, well, we'll see if that happens around the holidays. Joe Rady, beat writer for the Bengals for the Cincinnati Enquirer. Thanks for being with us. Meanwhile, these quotes from Mike Brown, the Bengals president, on why he decided now to reverse his stance and trade Carson Palmer. Several factors made us believe that trading Carson to Oakland was the best move for the Bengals at this time. The principal development has been Andy Dalton, who's shown himself to be one of the best and most exciting young quarterbacks in the NFL. We have a good young football team, and Andy can be the cornerstone of the team for a long time. We also find ourselves rather suddenly in position of being able to receive real value for Carson that can measurably improve our team. When this opportunity arose, we felt we could not let it pass. All right, I think we need some clarification now on exactly what the trade details are here, Mort. You've got something in that for us?
Well, but the Bengals are stating in their releases that this is a trade for a first-round draft pick in 2012, the Raiders' first-round draft pick, and a second-round pick in 2013. They added nothing about a conditional, that second-rounder becoming a first-rounder, which multiple sources have said it is. So right now, on the surface, it says first-round pick in 2012, second-round pick in 2013. Whether there are conditions attached to it, we'll continue to search for the truth, but right now that's what the Bengals are saying it is.
Okay, that's what the Bengals are saying it is in the release, but again, you've had several sources tell you that it could be another first-round pick depending on what happens with the Raiders in the postseason.
Exactly. Now whether that fell apart or whether the management council said no, it remains to be seen, but right now, first and a second-round pick.
Okay, so that's what they get, and this is a team in Cincinnati that's got a lot of things going for themselves right now. I mean, listen, they're 4-2. They've got the second-best defense in the NFL, and again, we talked about it a little bit. That relationship with Dalton and Green has really come along. How optimistic should people be in Cincinnati, Herm, right now?
I think they should be excited. You've got a young quarterback in Andy Dalton, a young receiver in A.J. Green. They're back to playing Bengal football, in which when they won the division, this is how they played. They played with a good defense. They try to run the football, take pressure off the quarterback. Andy Dalton, obviously, is a rising quarterback in this league, a rookie. He's having a fine season. These guys are 4-2. They should be excited about their situation right now in Cincinnati.
Eric, you played this team last year. It looks like a completely different bunch of guys out there.
I think this is a great move for Cincinnati. Very rarely do you get to make a trade and know what you have in your quarterback. And they were able to see what they had in Andy Dalton, then make the trade. And not only that, but they gain a lot of money in the trade with what they pick up in salary cap space and real cash in the transition from Palmer to Dalton. And they can do some things in free agency with that now and you infuse a lot of young talent into the team.
Well, listen, this is a Cincinnati franchise, you know, for years was called the Bungles for things that they did wrong. They did this right. I mean, they got this thing right, and they got something for Carson Palmer that a lot of people didn't think they were going to get, whether it's a conditional pick or not. Those 2 picks are significant.
Real significant, and I think we've been harping the last couple of weeks about obviously the San Francisco 49ers playing as well as they've played, Coach Harbaugh and the Detroit Lions. We need to give Marvin Lewis some love too. I mean, this team is 4-2, and it's in the hunt right now in this division. It says a lot about his coaching staff and what he's done thus far.
Yeah, and Mike Zimmer as defensive coordinator, they've done a good job on defense, although I kept looking, the quarterbacks they've played aren't what you would call elite quarterbacks, but you go back to that Buffalo Bills win, and you see that high-octane Buffalo Bills offense, they did pretty well against them too, so I think we do have to pay attention. You also have to give them credit, by the way, in the first round of that draft, they took A.J. Green first.
Right.
Andy Dalton second.
Right.
And that's because they wouldn't have been able to get those A.J. Green if they had waited until the second round, obviously.
And there's actually even some more good news here for the Cincinnati Bengals. Cedric Benson, the running back, he was appealing that 3-game suspension under the player conduct policy. It's been reduced to 1 game. It'll start immediately. He'll miss this week's game and be able to play in their next game after that, which will be the game against the Seattle Seahawks. Meanwhile, recent additions, we've been talking about some of these for the Cincinnati Bengals, but as for big trade deadline deals, we've seen some of those before. In 1987, Eric Dickerson went to the Colts in that 3-way trade that sent Cornelius Bennett to the Bills and 3 first-round picks to the Rams, and then Herschel Walker. We all remember this one that Jimmy Johnson was able to do. Herschel went from Dallas to the Vikings for about 400 players and 7,000 draft picks. And then in 2008, Roy Williams went to the Cowboys, former UT star, headed back to the Lone Star State, leaving the Lions for Dallas. Detroit got a 1st, a 3rd, and a 6th-round pick in return for that one. That didn't work out so well for the Cowboys. 2009, Braylon Edwards to the Jets after a number of off-field incidents. Eric, you're familiar with this deal.
Oh, yeah.
Braylon to the Jets. He helped the Jets to the AFC title game that season, and of course the subsequent year. And now Carson Palmer traded in exchange for a 1st-round pick in 2012 and what they're calling right now a 2nd-round pick in 2013. Again, recent notable trades. Here you see some of them. Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie for Kevin Cobb for a 2nd-round pick. Donovan McNabb, we'll got more on that in just a second, for a 6th-round pick. Again, Palmer, a 1st and a 2nd. Technically right now, there's still some uncertainty about whether or not that 2nd could eventually be a 1st, depending on nuances in language. And then the Jay Cutler deal was for Kyle Orton, 2 first-round picks, and a 3rd-round pick. Other quarterback news to get to. Leslie Frazier, the head coach of the Vikings, making it official today. Christian Ponder, who was somewhat surprisingly taken in the 1st round of April's draft in Minnesota, will get the start this Sunday against Green Bay. Donovan McNabb going to the bench. Obviously, the Vikings have been struggling all season long. Mort, what made this the right time for Leslie Frazier to make this move, in your opinion?
Well, I think there's one thing is that they felt Christian Ponder was finally comfortable with the offense. And you can even see Bill Musgrave, their offensive coordinators, worked hard on his fundamentals. He moved around instinctively. He moved around better than Donovan McNabb did the other night. And so, listen, in the position they're in right now, I think they feel like Ponder is ready as you can be as a rookie. And so for Donovan McNabb, I think now everybody's going to sit back and speculate, is it over? Does he want to finish the season as a Minnesota Viking? And is Leslie Frazier going to be able to persuade him to stick around and help mentor Christian Ponder? I think all those things are on the table. They're going forward with Christian Ponder. We thought it happened in the bye week 9, but the bye week has come now.
Well, listen.
Bye-bye for McNabb.
McNabb, right. What does he have left? I mean, in his first start with Minnesota, he threw for 39 yards, his fewest yards ever as a starter. In those first few games, they gave up double-digit leads in each one of those games. You know, McNabb, when he was dealt to the Vikings after that season in Washington, which did not go well, he said, you know, don't judge me by last year. You're going to see what the things that I've done in my career. I can do it again in Minnesota. Herm, what does he have left?
Well, I think right now what he realizes is that he's been put in a position where he's going to have to help a young quarterback. And I think Donovan will do that. He is a pro. He understands this happens in football. I think he understood that when he went to Minnesota, that they had a young quarterback. If I wasn't going to play well, probably going to have to turn around and put my baseball hat on and help this guy. And I think Donovan will do that.
And last year with Colt McCoy, he started initially because of injury, but later in the season when everybody was healthy, I had to make a decision. I decided to start Colt because I wanted to see what he could do and give him an opportunity to grow. And Jake Delhomme couldn't have been better in terms of mentoring him and helping him, and he was a big part of why Colt had some early success.
It is interesting because in 18 months, Donovan McNabb has now lost 3 starting jobs in the NFL. In early April, he was coming off a playoff season, although they lost to the Cowboys in the wild card round, but he was still, a playoff team in Philadelphia. April 5th, he was traded. Then, of course, it did not end well in Washington, and now the 3rd time in 18 months, he has lost a starting quarterback spot in the NFL. Lots of news on this trade deadline day around the NFL. Steelers say Troy Polamalu should be ready for Sunday's game against the Cardinals. That, according to head coach Mike Tomlin, saying he's good to go after passing his concussion test. Jerry Angelo says the Bears haven't received any calls inquiring about running back Matt Forte. Of course, Matt Forte is still inquiring about a new contract. He's still playing under his rookie contract and playing very well. And the Patriots have activated Kevin Falk from the physically unable to perform list. Good news for that running back. And as you heard Mort say earlier, more running back news. Ronnie Brown traded from the Philadelphia Eagles to the Detroit Lions. So all kinds of things going on this trade deadline day here on NFL Live. And don't forget, you can see a smiling Chris Mortensen on NFL 32, our new interactive, informative, entertaining show, weekdays 6 o'clock Eastern on ESPN2. NFL 32. You, the fan, and a lot of players have a voice in this as well. All right, when we continue here on NFL Live, it wasn't just a handshake, it was a woo and a push in the back and all kinds of pushing and shoving. We break down Handshake Gate on NFL Live.
Season, and we are set for football. And here we go. He's going to air one out down the middle, and he's caught.
The
Touchdown!
NFL all season long, live on ESPN America.
Last time I told you guys that, you forgot to remember. Remember?
They're tackling our guys on pass protection. Give me a number.
What the hell's that? Tell him to throw up on his own time. You better think about that, because you can't play if you don't do what I tell you. You're going to be tired of me. Oh, you're going to be tired of me.
Welcome to PTI, boys and girls, and we begin today with the bikini. I'll alert the media on that.
You saying baseball players can't be tough guys? $20 if you get it tattooed.
Okay, Wilmon.
He's gonna potentially have a show where he has a badge.
Boom.
Hey,
Shut up with that.
maybe he's a late.
This is horrific.
We agree.
Giant.
I needed a nap.
One word.
Magnifique.
I'm thinking.
My quarterback.
Just stop talking.
What are these players thinking? You didn't call that.
But you know what we do have?
Pardon the interruption. Weekdays on ESPN America.
All right, back with you here on NFL Live. You're looking at Marvin Lewis talking to the media in Cincinnati about the Carson Palmer trade. Let's listen into what Marvin has to say.
He could call me all night long. But he could call me all night long.
Kept you going. He kept you on the phone till we got where we wanted.
Well, I just think that this is something that's been on his mind for a little bit, and so it worked out, and and so we're pleased it got done.
Did it all begin to transpire after Jason Campbell's injury?
Again, it's been something that Hugh Jackson has had an interest in a little bit. So, and again, there's timing and specifics. It's not my place to speak about that.
How many offers had you received since July?
There's been quite a bit of discussion.
Do you feel like this is a big, even though you kept saying Carson is retired, do you feel like this is a big weight lift?
There's never been a deal in the NFL done when people knew about it. So this is a great deal for our club. So feel good about it.
You now have 9 picks in the first 3 rounds over the next 2 drafts. What does that say about the future of this team?
Well, I think the future is bright. I think Andy Dalton has gone out here, and A.J. Green, and as our rest of our picks over the last, as our players continue, our young players continue to play, I think people see how talented they are, and we're trying to shape and mold them into the spirit and what an NFL a playoff caliber team can look like and feel like and be like and play like. Play in and play out Sunday after Sunday, and we're still a work in progress, but we've got some great older players that are mentoring these guys and helping these guys through this, and they get a chance to take a little step back this week and and focus and recharge a little bit physically, mentally, and then have it the last 10 weeks of this season.
If this team is going to go where you guys want to take it, that means you're going to have some great players in the future for this franchise. How important was it if you guys not set the wrong precedent for another player down the road to come knocking down Mike's door with the same kind of demand?
Again, I'm completely, as everybody here knows, in tune with what Mike has said on this, because I believe the same thing. And any of my friends in the media that have asked me about this time and time again, you all have asked me, and I've been 100% that we were doing the right thing. And because that's part of it. You have to always be careful with who we are and extending and doing those things with that way. But again, Carson Palmer is been a tremendous person and player and a great ally of mine here, and so I'm happy for he and his family.
But it was Mike's intent all along when he said it. He meant it. That he had
no doubt
didn't have the plans to do.
No doubt, and I believe everybody believes that. So.
Throughout the lockout period, guys like Andrew Whitworth and some of them constantly talked about, well, look, Carson's made his decision. He doesn't want to be here. He doesn't have to be here. We're going to move on and everything. Was that something you talked to those guys about before the lockout? Maybe so they knew where you were coming from?
No, I actually didn't. But Andrew was closer to Carson than anybody on this football team. And Andrew and I have talked quite a bit about it since the lockout and so forth. But no. And I think the lockout has helped put us where we are, because our players, our returning players, had to absorb, accept. They got a chance to understand and get to know Andy Dalton without us telling them, and I've said this in here before, without us trying to give them an impression of what Andy Dalton was. They had to take him from face value, and he earned their trust and respect through how he carried himself through his time with them, away from us as coaches. And so that's led him to the level of leadership that he has on this football team already, and that was quite a positive.
When you heard guys like Whitman again make comments like that during the lockout, how'd that make you feel as a coach?
Well, again, I prefer that they keep their comments to themselves in every way. Because it's not there's nothing constructive that can come from that, and I understand you guys are going to ask the questions. Okay, but they have to. What I told them when we opened up, when I got the opportunity to talk to them, is your comments don't help, hurt, or do anything one way or another. So just keep them. You don't have to have it. Don't worry about it. It's out of your hands, and just let it move on. To focus on what's here and what's now. And I think they've done a great job of that since I could corral them back together in doing that. To focus on what is here and now and not worry about what's not, or what did happen, or what transpired, or what this and what that. And I think that's been the best thing.
Good from both sides too that there weren't he said, he says.
Well, I think Carson's handled this like the man he is, and that's been great.
Any thought, Marvin, that you could be battling the Raiders for playoffs?
I would welcome that opportunity.
That was an interesting question there, because he is dealing Carson Palmer, not that Marvin did it, but the team is dealing Carson to a team in the AFC that has the same record as them, as 4-2. But it is interesting. Marvin has been steadfast through this entire process. Every time, and people have peppered him about Carson Palmer, for months. And Carson is retired. we're moving on. How much do you think that helped that Bengals organization just in the way he handled a question that you knew he was getting almost daily?
Well, I think the players look at how the coach handles questions like this, and you're right. He was steady on his comments. He never got involved in it. He was more about really coaching the football team, coaching a young football team. And if you're Marvin Lewis right now and the Cincinnati Bengals, you're excited. You drafted a quarterback in the second round who's starting for you. A.J. Green, first-round pick, wide receiver starting for you. So now they have some more picks going into next year. They got to be delighted.
Yeah, I thought he handled it great because there really wasn't anything that the players could do about it, and there wasn't anything that anybody could do about it. So if they just focus on what they had to do right now and Andy Dalton playing, that's what was going to be most constructive. I thought he handled it really well, and life doesn't change much for him right now. The draft picks don't hit till next year and the year after. He's able to move forward, though, from the Carson Palmer part.
Well, this team is getting younger in a hurry, and that's never a bad thing, especially if there's young with talent. You heard them say, well, they have nine picks coming up in the next couple of years. You have a young quarterback, you have a young wide receiver, and it is interesting. You know, we had this idea to talk about the handshake with Jim Harbaugh and Jim Schwartz and all that went on, and how that affects their team. And Marvin was very cool, calm, and demeanor here, and you can see that his team is responding to his poise.
Sure, and they should. And I think when you think about Cincinnati, they're a little frugal with their money. So these draft picks really help them because you don't have to pay as much for these draft picks anymore.
I think it's a great situation, and it frees up the money that you had invested in Carson Palmer, and you can take that money now and go improve the team in free agency. So there's two ways that they benefit.
You can. The question is, will you? Which is always sometimes the issue in Cincinnati. Okay, so what's next now as we look forward to the schedule ahead presented by Dodge for the Raiders with Carson Palmer? Here it is. They play the Chiefs, the Broncos, and the Chargers. As you said, Herm, 3 straight with a bye week in between the Chiefs and the Broncos inside their division. This is a team that you look at that schedule, it looks pretty favorable.
Sure. I mean, now we'll find out. We'll find a lot about the Raiders these next 3 weeks.
It's all ahead on a huge day in the NFL. Carson Palmer now wearing the silver and black of the Oakland Raiders.
Sunday night, the NFL takes over the home of football as Jay Cutler leads the Monsters of the Midway into London. It's an international showdown as the Chicago Bears and Tampa Bay Buccaneers go head-to-head live from Wembley. And then we're back stateside as Rodgers and the defending Super Bowl champions battle the Minnesota Vikings. It all starts at 1600 CET with Sunday Night Countdown. Sunday Night Football live on ESPN America, home of the NFL.
Dalton steps up, it's a draw, and he's in! Touchdown, Andy Dalton! Dalton, chased out by Kyle Williams, dives for the first down.
After review, it has been determined that the ball was advanced to the 46-yard line. It will be first down in Cincinnati.
They give it back to Leonard. Across the 35, another Cincinnati first down. And Andy Dalton is going to take this down for 1 play. He calls timeout with 4 seconds to go from 43 yards. Nugent is good. And the Bengals and the Bills, their first loss of the season.
I'm Michael Kim. Coming up Wednesday on SportsCenter, we get you ready for the Rangers versus the Cardinals in the World Series. Hear from both teams as they get in their final day of preparations before Game 1 in St. Louis. On the ice, Alex Ovechkin and the Capitals look to remain undefeated as they host the Panthers. It's one of 10 games on the NHL docket. Plus, we have your NFL top plays of the week. That and more Wednesday on SportsCenter.
I think Mike Brown wakes up and realizes, I got to trade Carson Palmer. He's not coming back here. He's just sitting on our bench. We have our quarterback of the future. Let's get something for him that can help this team that does have the best defense in the league and perhaps give us a little more explosion on camera. And perhaps the idea
That's really bold.
That is really
way out there
really bold. I mean, I'm out on Crazyville.
Yeah.
It pays to be bold, my friend. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, let's
bask in my greatness for a second. That's all.
ESPN America. American for sports.
On the streets of New York City, bartenders make their living from two things: tips and tall tales.
When you work in a bar, you hear a lot of stories. Most of them, they're not true. But this story is true, and it happened to me. I am Giovanni Bartocci, born and raised in Rome. I lived a few years in Rome. Then I moved with my family in a little country village outside Rome. His name is Ronciglione. I come to visit my uncle when I was 13, 14, and I saw this football game. And there was a green and yellow versus, I think it was purple, so that was Minnesota. So I remember the craziness of the fan, you know. Half of the fan was naked, was snowing. All of them had a huge cheese head on the top of the head. Then on the corner there was GB, Green Bay, and I am Giovanni Bartocci. I say, wait a minute, GB, G, green and yellow, crazy fan. I love them. That's gonna be my team for the rest of my life. I came here 2008, and after I came here, I decided I have to go and watch. I have to go to my Mecca, you know, to the Lambeau Field. It was 9 degrees, it was freezing. Freezing. Freddissimo, -10, Lambeau Field. The third quarter, I got crazy, and I felt like if I want to really make a status as a Green Bay Packers fan, I had to get 1 quarter without shirts. 2 years later, the Green Bay, they have a good shot for the Super Bowl to go to Dallas. And me and my friend, who's a Jets fan, we're supposed to go together.
It is Green Bay all the way to Super Bowl 45.
But Jets, they didn't make it. So he decided to not go, and I was like, you know what? What the hell? I'm going. That's it. Straight away, solo flight. So the only way I could go and watch the game was an help from the guardian angel. Do you believe in guardian angel? I do.
Bartocci had no game ticket, but a gridiron guardian angel must have heard his prayers, because he suddenly found himself in possession of a sideline pass and a front row seat to Super Bowl 45. Just don't ask the identity of his patron saint.
How did you get on the field for the Super Bowl?
No speak English. Huh?
Regà, 4:05. Se non completano, i Green Bay hanno vinto il Super Bowl.
So watching the clock, and I was like, no way. No way. And it's 0. It's 0. We are champions. So the only thing I remember running the field. I'm focused on Aaron Rodgers. I could see it down there on the other side of the field. I have to hug him. He's the champion of the world. I'm the Packer. I have to hug him.
I'm going to Disneyland. I'm going to Disney World. One more time. I'm going to Disney World.
Can you imagine the poor guy having an Italian guy screaming in his ear after winning the Super Bowl? And then it was party. It was party. I was being part of them, like be part of the Green Bay Packers family. And for 1 second, felt bad, but that passed through my brain for 30 seconds. Then I started to celebrate again.
Coach, good job.
And I remember that they were giving the Lombardi to Woodson, and I remember just like that, passing by, and I was like,
Come on, buddy. Watch your shoulder, guys. Watch out. Back up.
I touched the Lombardi trophy with these two fingers. I washed it a couple of days after, but I touched the Lombardi trophy.
Aaron Rodgers may have gone to Disney World, but the Italian immigrant bartender from New York City was already in the happiest place on earth.
Who's your guardian angel?
Gabriel. The only thing is missing is the name of my guardian angel. If you don't believe it, it's your problem. It's not mine, because I don't say lie. I'm Roman, you know, I don't lie. I touched the Lombardi trophy. Ciao, bello.
BCS standings are out, but are they right? And which undefeated teams are more pretender